Hi, I'm back. I just filmed another video. Don't mind me, I didn't change my clothes. Who cares? I wanted to talk about my trip to Sedona. And the reason why is because I taped it earlier and I didn't really like the way it came out. I think it was kind of boring and I don't want it to be boring. I want you to feel entertained and I want things that I communicate to be insightful and entertaining. So anyway, hopefully it doesn't come off boring, but I wanted to talk about two things in Arizona. When I decided to go to Sedona, it was also when California was having the biggest rainstorm of the century, basically. And it was going through the state and also in parts of Sedona, Arizona. And so I drove in this weather. And I made it. It was fine, but it was a journey. And then also when I hit Arizona, their terrain is different. And so I was like, oh my God, there's all these mountains and cactus. And it's raining. I can't see. And then, anyway, but I made it. And so that was my opening to Sedona and Arizona. And what I did find when I got to Arizona, I want to remind or tell you guys, because no one was around me, so how can I remind you about me? But I had kind of shut down a lot of my connection to spirit. And part of that is from living in the mold and just having such a hard time finding joy and feeling good in my body again. And so when I entered into Sedona, it was because there's so many spiritual vortexes, there's so many people that believe in, all the spiritual phenomena, and it's also popular, like yoga and all the Reiki and all this stuff, which are tools to help us get to the level that we need to get to. So I do want to express that. Don't get stuck there. It doesn't mean you can't experience it. It doesn't mean that you can't be a teacher or create a shop that has crystals. But I do want to say that there's more than that. And if you continue to evolve your spirituality, you will see those things as tools, and they're helpful and they're fun, but they're not the dogmatic way of connecting with spirit. So anyway, that's my little judgment. Don't be offended. So anyway, because Sedona has this type of energy, it really opened me up, and it was a struggle because I was so fearful. I had so much fear built up from the pandemic, built up from living in mold because it affected my emotions and it gave me anxiety, depression, because it's a neurotoxin as well. So my whole system was just off, and I was afraid of the world. So I'm walking in Sedona, I'm hiking in Sedona, trying to get fresh air and be outdoors, and I'm literally freaking out, and I'm feeling all my fear. And what it was, and what was interesting about it wasn't that I was fearful of the space that I was in. It was the fact that kind of when you're first opening yourself up to psychic energy or channeling or anything spiritual, it has a resonance. And if you're not familiar with the way that vibration feels, it does feel a little scary. It does feel a little off. And you're like, what is that? I feel things what is this? So I'm out in nature, I'm hiking, and I'm scared because I can feel all the psychic energy trying to come to me. And in fact, when I touched down, I'll get back to the hiking because it's interesting, but when I touched down to Sedona, my spirit guides were like, you need to wear a tourmaline crystal. You need to put this in your pocket when you're out here. And the times that I did not have the crystal, people would get this interesting look in their face, they were determined to kind of semi-attack me in a way. And I was like, this is very interesting. And then I put the crystal on and everyone was fine. So I do feel at the time, because we hadn't necessarily switched into the new earth quite yet, that there were still energies or entities or things that maybe were attached to me or around me that were trying to keep me from expanding as well. So if they can keep me in fear, then I don't expand as much. So if I'm interacting with someone and they're mean or they're looking at me a certain way or I feel fearful of them, then it's activating to keep me small. And so anyway, I wore my little crystal. I went hiking one day, and I'm like, it's like wide open spaces. There's mountains, there's trees, there's grass, there's a creek, there's all this stuff going on. And I'm feeling the psychic energy. I'm like, I'm so scared. And so I just started singing like a kid's nursery rhyme because it made me feel better. So I'm like singing, and I'm singing it out loud because there's like nobody around. And then a spirit is like, go this way. Nature's telling me which way to go as well. And so I hit the creek, and nature's like, okay, you need to go down here to this vortex. We're going to show you where to go. But when you see the trees, you have to ask for permission to walk through. And I was like, okay. So I got there, felt this vortex energy, saw the trees. They're like this. And then, the tops were touching. And I asked permission to walk through, and they're like, yes, you may walk through. As soon as I walked through, it was like energy rain. Like it was like a little tickle down my spine. And then I just started skipping afterwards. I just felt so good. And I was really thankful to have that experience. And so Sedona was very magical for me. It was also trying too. Like I was there, and it was the start of me having this overactive response to mold, and like what I talked about in my MCAS video, where this last year, it's just been really difficult. And so I booked a place. It had a leak. The whole place smelled weird. I had to move out of there. It's the middle of December, so then it's hard to find another place for a whole month. I'm doing an Airbnb, but it had dog stuff in the air conditioner because there was pets allowed, which I didn't notice when I booked it. I had to wait for the other Airbnb. That was perfect. I found the Airbnb that worked well for me. And that was actually the first week that I didn't have a flare in several years. And I remember too, as I was detoxing from the mold exposure again, and I was panicking in my head, and spirit was like, don't do that. Well, they didn't say it like that, but they were like, you have to decide that it's okay, and you need to get back into your joy. And that's what I did. And I was also doing other things. I was taking supplements. I took a rebounding class. I learned how to tap on my lymph nodes to help them release toxins and flow better. And so it was just dynamic. And I was hiking every day in fresh air. I got direct vitamin D sunlight because the sunlight was so intense there. And I was talking to nature. I was opening my heart. I was getting more aligned with who I really am, and bringing her back into my life. The person that's super psychic and super intuitive, and it's natural for me to the point where I don't think twice about it. And I actually think everybody's like that. And then I get a rude awakening at some point. So anyway, it's bringing her back to me. And so Sedona was great. And then another thing I just want to share is, at the time, my real father, my birth father, he was in hospice. And the thing about him is we weren't close. And I really didn't prefer his energy at all. And when my sister called to tell me he was in hospice, I kind of felt a really dynamic energy show up a few days later. And I was like, this energy is very big and expansive. This is interesting. And I kind of was like, is this my dad? I'm not sure. It seems weird because him as a person was definitely not that. And so I ended up, the day that my sister called to tell me he passed away, which was a few days after he passed, I actually had booked this psychic massage, which I wanted to try all these different things in Sedona that I hadn't done. And so that was one thing on my list. I was like, what is this? But basically, you choose these oils. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a process. And they were actually developed by a woman who was blind, and she does these color oils. And, or she created these oils that have color, and they have a certain frequency, and they tell a story. So you get those oils, you get your massage, and then and I believe they're called Lotus something. I'll have to put it in the description, because you should go if you're in Sedona. It was the best massage ever, and I got so much psychic information, and it was great. So anyway, you get a massage, and then while she's giving you a massage, she'll tell you what she's getting intuitively. So she gets over to the right side of my body, which we know classically is my flare side. So when it's a really bad flare, I get semi-paralysis on the right side of my body and a lot of pain. And so she's massaging there, and she goes, I think this might have to do something with your dad. And I was like, interesting. And she goes, yeah, he's like here. And she was like, yeah, he wasn't a good man. He's telling me that his trauma got in the way. And I was like, yeah, that's true. I didn't really have a close relationship with him. And then she says to me, but he wants to make amends, and he wants to kind of like, do the work in spirit. And if you're open to it, you can allow him and connect with him. And I was like, okay. So I left that massage. I got home, and another thing I forgot to tell you was when my sister told me that my father passed away, I also heard the song called Cool Cat in my head by Queen. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting song. I looked up the lyrics, and I was like, oh, it sounds a little bit like my dad. Like, my dad was very much like a peacock. He walks in the room. He wants everyone to pay attention to him. He's making noises. He's flamboyant. Like, he's just kind of loud and charismatic, and wants to be the center of attention. Very emotionally immature. So I was listening to Cool Cat, or I was reading the lyrics to Cool Cat, and I was like, oh, is this a sign from him? I don't know. So just remember that. So I get home, and I'm scrolling on Instagram a little bit later, and my dad's energy, it showed up again, and he was like, tell me what you want. Like, I'm going to work on what you need in your life. So I gave him a list of things that I wanted and that I needed to happen in my life, or would like to happen in my life. And he was like, okay, got it. And his whole big energy flew away. And I was like, this is very interesting, because he is so powerful on the other side. And I thought, well, that's really great. That's probably why I chose him and my mother as parents, because they probably have a very big dynamic soul. And I'm always interested, or I've been told when I've gotten readings, that my soul is interested in power. And so that's why I tend to come down to earth, but also not just power in that way. I also am here volunteering to help shift humanity and bring us to a higher consciousness and align us with our true, authentic selves. So anyway, I get home, and I'm scrolling on Instagram, and I come across this guy, and he's holding a cat, and I'm like, oh, this cat's really cute. And I'm listening to the story, and he's saying, oh, I found this cat outside and blah, blah, blah. And in the background, very low, the music that's playing is Cool Cat. And I'm like, okay. So I'm listening. I'm like, I'll watch the whole thing. And then he goes, and I decided to name the cat Simone. And the thing is, that's my last name. That's my dad's surname. And so I got chills as I'm telling you this story again. And I'm like, okay, Dad, you are here. I'm not making this up. And this is another tidbit. Even though I'm super psychic, I still sometimes question mediumship. I'm always like, am I just reading your mind, or is the spirit actually coming through? If I give a reading for mediumship, I always wonder if I'm just tuning into the person that knew the person that died, or is there actually the energy there? So anyway, this is kind of proof in the pudding that there's some spirit energy happening. And so anyway, I just wanted to share those two stories with you about Sedona, because they were interesting, and I love sharing these kind of stories, because it's so normal for me. And if you have something going on like this, where things just start falling into place and synchronicities, and you're getting all these signs, I feel like when you hear other people talk about it, it makes you believe what you're experiencing too. And then also you will let go of the idea that you're crazy or something's wrong with you. No, you're just a highly evolutionalized spiritual being, and you're here on the planet to help everyone, and to also just open your heart and be yourself and have an experience. Okay, so I'm gonna go now. Bye.